Over the last few days, Elon Musk has been dropping some hints about changes that will be made to Tesla's first electric truck, the distinctive, polarising Cybertruck. And while some have been losing their heads over the news of any potential redesign, and others have been crowing about how they were right that Tesla's original design was implausible as a production vehicle, we felt it was time for some context. So in today's video, I'm going to talk to you about the differences between concepts, prototypes and production vehicles, why it happens, and why you shouldn't be worried that Tesla is redesigning its Cybertruck, because what's happening is pretty much standard across the entire auto industry. Okay, let's go back to the start. Concepts, prototypes, and production vehicles. Concepts and prototypes are both interesting as they don't always lead to production vehicles. But every production vehicle will have made its appearance at some point as a concept and a prototype. Automotive industry concepts are, as the name suggests, an idea for a future model. Usually focusing on design language, they can be as basic as a computer rendering or a clay model, or as fully complex as a functioning vehicle. Different automakers approach concept vehicles differently, and while some do unveil them at auto shows with lavish names and futuristic interiors that would never stand up to daily life, they're often far from complete. Concept cars are usually off limits to journalists, unless they're really well finished functional concepts that the automaker is super proud of. They often feature technology that isn't quite mainstream or even functional yet, but represent a hope for the future of the brand or the maker. Prototypes sit between concept and production vehicles, although I should note they don't always feature final design language. Test mules, for example, are cars that look nothing like the final version of the car, but are used as engineering development prototype vehicles. Here's a video of me driving a Nissan Leaf test mule back in 2009. It was a Nissan Versa body with a Nissan Leaf drivetrain stuffed inside. At this point, we've already seen what the actual concept Leaf looked like, which was actually pretty close to the final production vehicle. But the test mule allowed Nissan engineers to test and refine the Leaf's drivetrain in stealth long before production bodies were ready. Prototypes, like concept cars, can vary widely in their appearance and functionality. I've sat in and driven some truly horrendous prototypes, and I've sat in prototypes that felt as good as a production vehicle. But the important thing to note here is that prototypes, especially early ones, often called alpha or beta prototypes, depending on how far through the development process they are rarely identical to final production vehicles. It's only when you get to production intent vehicles, where the design is locked down and most of the software functionality has been developed, that you're anywhere near to anything you'll see on the road. And then after production intent, you'll get pre-production vehicles of various guises, which are usually used to do final engineering validation and test the manufacturing process. For a great example, check out the inside of the Chevrolet Bolt EV concept at its premiere versus the version that we ended up as a production vehicle, and you'll get to see the gap between concept, prototype and production. And yes, if you're watching this and think I've missed out some stages, I have. I'm trying to simplify the process. But the important thing to note here is even though the vehicle Tesla revealed last November as a Cybertruck was, most likely, a concept or very early prototype, I'm actually going to call it the latter, as Tesla was offering drives that day, and from what I can see, the truck certainly had all of the qualities of an early prototype. But let's come back to the matter of those tweaks that Elon Musk is hinting will be made to the production version of Cybertruck. We know for a fact that Elon's been riding around in an early alpha prototype of Cybertruck, at least on occasion, and so it's likely he's been feeding back some thoughts to the engineering team. Then there's the matter of what engineers have discovered needs to be done to improve the vehicle, because no matter what the vehicle's designers come up with, they are not engineers, and they could have come up with an amazing design that's amazing or unique, but then the engineers show it's not going to give the customers what they want or work the way that the designers intended. Finally, there's a reality check of vehicle regulations, classifications, and on-the-road realities. You know, things like ensuring the lights are in the correct place, that crumple zones and occupant safety measures will actually work. And that's the thing that actually suits all of the markets where the vehicle is going to be sold. The latter one is, I think, probably the reason why Elon Musk has said that Tesla is going to reduce the overall size of Cybertruck by 3% and the size of the 6-seat cabin by 1.5%. This would translate into a noticeably smaller load bay area, which I think cements Cybertruck as less of a work vehicle and more of a show commuting truck that can work when it needs to. But the reduction in size is important if Tesla wants to sell Cybertruck in Europe, where roads are smaller, parking spaces are smaller, and something the size of the original prototype would frankly struggle. To put that in context, some European countries set standard new road lane widths at just 2.5 metres. And the prototype Cybertruck we saw in November was 2.08 metres wide. US roads use a lane width of 3.7 metres wide as a general rule, so Cybertruck would fit just fine. And sure, there are other vehicles out there with similar widths. Some Range Rover models, for example, can't go down certain British roads because they're just too big. And if Cybertruck is going to be a global model, reducing the size by 3%, let's assume it's an all-round reduction, as I have no other data to go on, the width would certainly be more manageable. It would still be too wide for the most narrow of passengers and roads, but far more manageable. And if you're not convinced by that, how about this fact? Cybertruck doesn't currently appear to fit in a standard US garage, which, if you need to plug it in overnight to charge, it's kind of useful. Other adjustments to be made? Well, there's talk of changing the windowsill height and also making the centre line of the Cybertruck more level. The former would make it easier to use things like drive-thrus, and I'm suspecting the centre line levelling at the waistline of the truck will make it look proportionally less awkward. We also know from a tweet last week from Musk that Cybertruck will also get a revised air suspension system to give it kick-ass performance in Baja, as Musk put it. Will there be other changes between now and production? You bet. You probably won't notice most of them. And while you might not realise it, Tesla's process is just like other automakers in this regard, and each car Tesla has made to this date has gone through tweaks, both large and small, noticeable and not, between initial reveal event and official production delivery. Are there any modifications you'd like to see Tesla make to Cybertruck? Are you disappointed with some of the modifications coming down the line, or do you support them? And what do you think the final Cybertruck will really look like? Let me know below. That's it. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.